You're listening to Discovering Truth with Dan Duvall. Well, folks, we are back on Discovering Truth with Dan Duvall, and I'm very excited to bring back a guest that had done a number of incredible programs with me, but well, we haven't seen her in a little while. Her name is Hope, and she had just an extraordinarily moving testimony. Her memory recall is extraordinary concerning the things that happened in the physical realm as she was undergoing satanic ritual abuse and Illuminati programming. And she talked about it. She also wrote a book. It's called To Tell the Truth. And we at Bride Ministries are actually carrying that book at our website, brideministriesinternational.com. We still have a few copies that you can pick up from us, and you can also find her on Amazon and other places. But Hope, welcome back to the program.
It's great to be here. It's been too long.
Yeah, it has been a while. And, you know, we have continued to work together, Hope. And you have memories that are continuing to surface, and you are learning things about your past now that you didn't even know a year or 2 years ago when you were writing your book. And by the way, I hear another book is underway.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the Lord is telling me to go a little bit deeper, even though I went really deep in that last book, just to uncover some new things that He's been showing me and He's revealed to me. So I'm looking at the very beginning stages of that.
Wow. Well, we're standing by and cheering you on, Hope. Now, because it's been a while, and because your story was so deep and covered so many subjects as you were sharing it on the podcast, and by the way, folks, if you have not heard the recordings that we have done with Hope, I highly recommend that you go back and find those, because there is so much there. And you can just find them at our podcast page at brideministriesinternational.com or any of the many places that we post these programs. But Hope, can you just take 5 or 10 minutes and walk us through a high-level overview of what your so-called parents did, the kind of programming that you experienced, who they were, that is your so-called parents, and just give us a little bit of background before we dive into the subject today.
Sure. So I was actually born into the Illuminati. My what I consider my mom, she actually just carried the DNA. I mean, she was the one that actually birthed me. She died when I was born. And then I was involved in all of well, I wouldn't say involved, but I was pretty much tortured and abused from infancy, really. And it was all very secretive. It was very deep. I wouldn't say that I was one of thousands of high level MK Ultra mind control victims, very more hidden, more in Kentucky and more in the southern states. Had a lot of southern programming, a lot of Christian programming, a lot of church programming. So, I mean, there's thousands and thousands of people that have been programmed and gone through this torture. And I was one of the many people that I went through. A lot of it was here in the U.S. I was taken over to India and some other places in Africa, but mainly was the U.S. They did a lot of American Dream kind of programming that if I was good enough, I was perfect enough, then I would get rewarded to some form of freedom. The main goal was that I would have this knight in shining armor, which pretty much they would represent as the Jesus, my Jesus, not the Jesus, but a human being that I would be able to get married to at some point, and if I was good enough, and that would end up taking over the programming and controlling me. So my deepest programming was to convince me that I was completely evil and that I was uncontrollable, out of control, evil, crazy, and I needed them in order to keep from being like that. So that's what kept me. I didn't get free until I was 30 years old. And I've been working on that healing for the last 16, almost 17 years. So it's been a really long journey.
One of the most incredible parts about your story was the nature of your first years. That is from 1 to about 5,
Mm-hmm.
because you were not really in the public at all.
No, no, I was very much in, it was like a hospital setting, very much underground type of setting. They do that on purpose to really set the foundation of your thinking and all of the triggers and all of the code words. And with people like me that were trained soldiers, they give us like our orders of what we're supposed to be doing. Of course, all of this for me, I wasn't doing it willfully. Everything was through torture and um, forced. But yeah, the first 5 years was very continual torture, so that later on in life they could keep me in a normal setting, like a house within, a middle class kind of subdivision, to where people wouldn't be aware. I was so programmed by the time I was 5 that I knew how to act and how to think, how to be in order to appear like everyone else. And they do that very strategically. Every single move that you make is torture. Like, for example, if I was to breathe, like they tell me when I could breathe and how I could breathe, and speaking, like when I could speak and how I was to speak. Every tiny little detail that you can even imagine, they control and they manipulate and they use to really create their own human robot to do what they want you to do.
My gosh. Well, folks, today we are here because Hope has a whole new set of memories and she wants to talk about them. And so I'm going to introduce this subject uh, because she is here to talk about NASA and NASA's programming specifically. And at the outset of this, the only thing I want to say is that when it comes to government agencies, many of our government agencies are deeply infiltrated. We're going to learn. This includes branches of civilian government and military, U.S. Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Army. Oh my goodness, there is a lot of deep darkness, yet through compartmentalization, not everyone is implicated that is part of these organizations. And, I just want to say that because I want us to always maintain a balanced view when it comes to these kinds of subjects regarding actual human beings and people, but at the same time, expose the darkness for what it is. And,
Absolutely.
Hope, man, you have a lot to say about NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space um, Association. And I want to just open it up with this question. Why do you believe that these memories have only just recently surfaced?
Well, I mean, you take a person that pretty much every day I was tortured. I mean, I was tortured every day, and it may just have been a follow up torture and programming, but there was some form of torture every single day and rape and other things. But you take a person that's gone through that level, and I went through that for 30 years. And you think about people's normal memories, a thought, a smell, a picture, anything can bring up what would be a normal memory for someone else. But for me, and for those that have been through what I've been through, they're all bad memories. I mean, every single, because it was bad, and it's not an exaggeration. It was bad every second of every day. So the Lord has shown me that it's kind of like the thing that people talk about the onion and how you peel it back. Well, I've got a huge onion, and then there's lots and lots of layers. And so he's not going to give me all of everything that I need to be healed from all at once. Like I said, I've been on this journey for 16, 17 years, and it's gotten better and better and better. I mean, I'm better than I've ever been in my life as far as like being able to go to a normal job and being married and, having ministry, that kind of thing. So it's a continual journey of healing. And it's just another level. It's just another layer of things. And I think that this is, just now surfacing because it just was too much for me to handle before, because it was so intense and so terrorizing to see some of the things that I saw. And they practically made me think, they did make me think that if I ever shared this, that people would think that I was crazy and lock me up, would be going back there, And so there was just lots of program to keep this hidden. And as each layer has come off, it's like it gives me more and more freedom to allow those parts to come out, to allow those memories to come out, to where I feel safe enough that even if people don't believe me or if they think that I'm making it up, because there's a lot of people that do, but that I'm okay with that, because I know that I went through that. Like, I have the emotions, I have the feelings, I have all of that. There's no reason why I would make up things that are so torturous and so painful, and just are like, just even preparing for this today was very, very difficult. I mean, your mind doesn't want to go to things that are extremely painful. I have no reason to do that other than it being real. I mean, I don't get a payoff for this, I'm not making millions of dollars by sharing my story. So,
well, no, you are not. And yes, you are very brave. So next, I want to ask, what were the age categories during which you experienced the bulk of the NASA programming?
Most of my NASA program, like the deep foundational programming, was when I was a little, probably about 4 or 5, something like that. But that actually continued on throughout. They did more like corporate programming, to where they would take you back, and it would be like a week at a time or something like that. And they would, just reinforce all those things and new technologies and new program that they had. That's where they would test that out. So it was a continual thing that periodically would happen.
So you received, in other words, the foundation of the NASA programming while you were still in the underground facilities between the ages of 1 and 5.
Yes.
And then they kept reinforcing it with like week-long, or you could almost call them field trips or whatnot.
Yes, yes, definitely. That's exactly the way it was. And that's really kind of the theme of what they did, like all the foundational stuff they did when I was really little. But then they would follow up, like especially even as I was starting to kind of break down, my program was breaking down, then they took me places and extended period of time tried to reprogram me. So that's kind of how they work, because they want you to be out in the open doing what they want you to do, because they make a lot of money and they have a lot of control in their hierarchy. If people see that you're actually a functional soldier, a functional MK Ultra, they get prestige, really, a horrible, hideous prestige, but that's what they think.
So let's get into the details, Hope. Tell us about some of the types of programming that was involved.
Well, pretty much at the root of, as we've talked about a lot previous to this, how they create all those denial parts is with really, really intense pain that you can't get away from, to where your mind has to go away. For example, one memory that I have is being put on the machines that they train the astronauts on, where it goes very, very fast, and it flips you upside down and around and spins you around. And they would put me on there, and it would just make me really, really sick, really, really dizzy. And if that's done for a really long time, it's very painful. Mm. And so they would use that, like, if you get sick, then something's going to happen to somebody because you can't control yourself. And they would follow up with that. They would electrocute someone in front of me, or do something to hurt someone else. So then, of course, I thought that, because I'm evil, because I'm bad, that's why that happened. And so that reinforces that, I needed to be there because I'm so bad and so evil, and I needed those things. I really literally thought that I needed, like, a basic needed to be tortured, because I just was terrified of myself, because that's the whole basis of my programming. And then so for me, a lot of the fear and terror that I had was to be alone, because if I'm alone, then I don't know what I'm going to do to somebody or how I'm going to hurt somebody. And so they set up different things to give you reasons, like get somebody that's dead, and then they said, well, you did that. Or they would have a video with somebody that looked like me, and then they said, well, that was you were out of control, we were out of the room, and this is when you did it, when you killed that person. And so I just was terrified of myself. And another way that they really would train your mind to split off was, since it was the NASA thing, it was like a false sense of importance that they wanted to do, in a way too, because they wanted you to think, oh, well, you're part of this, this experiment, or this going to the moon, like you're important. And for a person it's been treated like an animal, any kind of importance is like, you crave that, And so they would dress you up, not just me, there's lots of other victims, but they would dress you up, and they dressed me up in like an astronaut suit. I'm not sure if it was a real one or not, but they would put us in a really, really dark room, and then it would have the lights around. So literally, because you've been in such a secluded area, you don't know anything. You're a kid. You don't know anything else. You don't know, is this space, or, where am I? Like, you don't know. And so it would look like the stars and all that. And of course, they have the gravity thing where you can go anywhere and do like the fly away, where they put you up in the air and all of that. And so, literally, I thought I was in space. Like I thought, well, I'm by myself alone, and so it would be a really dark room with those lights and then that. And then pretty much any of the torture they did with me, they would normally have some type of speaker or something going on to where they would say things, and I would think that it was God through the speaker, telling me that he was really paying me back for being so sinful, and all the things that they wanted me to think about God. For all of us, we thought that NASA was where God lived. I mean, that's what they told us, and God put us there, and that's where He lived. And all the things that were happening to us, it was God's orders for that to happen to us. So, if you think that God's doing that to you, then how are you going to question it? You don't question that. And so, pretty much they would make your mind. I mean, when you are in an isolated place, it's extreme torture to be by yourself for long periods of time, and in a dark room and you just think you're somewhere in space and nobody's ever going to find you. And so your mind it splits off to try to endure what you're enduring. And so pretty much they use that as leverage. Hey, if you tell anybody about any of this, we're going to tell them, you're crazy. Nobody's ever going to believe you. And so we could actually feel like it was glass. You could feel the glass, but you couldn't get out. So it's just this very terrifying. It makes you question everything. Are you crazy or what's wrong with you? And so, that's just something that they continually do. Now, and then, yeah, go ahead.
I have a question here. When you were going through this programming, was it primarily overseen by the people that claimed to be your parents, or were they turning you over to others that were overseeing this program at the NASA facilities?
I mean, it was really like a training corporate setting to where there was like the main people were there in charge. And so they would tell all the programmers what to go and do with the victims. And so there was tons of programmers. There was also, and they were, they were doing it willfully. It's not like they didn't have a choice. But then they had the leaders over that were kind of in the front, that were in charge. It really looked like more of a training, like that you would go to, and
okay,
just continually learning new ways to program people's minds to where they can split off and be a better soldier and perform better.
Now, there are a number of NASA facilities around the U.S. Do you have recollection of which one or ones you were likely to be programmed at, or not? That's not really available to you?
Honestly, I never ever, when I was traveling anywhere, knew where I was going. Mm-hmm. They made it very, 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 like, I never knew where I was going. But since I've been getting healing, I'll go into a specific area and memories will flood through. And so then I know, hey, this is obviously an area that I was tortured in, because it's like there's different demons and territorial spirits, and I could just feel it in the atmosphere. And then all of the the pictures and the flashbacks and all of that come back. So I know I was definitely taking Florida, some of the other southern states, and I think they have like remote places even that are not outwardly NASA, you know. So, but even the ones that are really NASA, they're all underground. And like you said before, it's just like with Disney or any of those places where I was tortured. Like there's some really people have no idea that's going on, you know, out in the open. Like the people that are working the normal kind of jobs,
Yes.
in view, you know, they don't know that that's going on. But there's very, very evil going on under the surface. It's very classified stuff, and it's really literally underground. So
Wow. Now, you also dealt with programming involving holograms and markers. Can you describe what that was?
well, like we were talking about, it was like a training. The corporate times when I was taking there in some of the foundational stuff at the beginning, they would always have like it looked like kind of a military screen up front, but then they would also cause it to be more hologram-like, so that you would actually be given orders in specific things that you're supposed to do through those holograms. It would look like kind of a look like a computer screen, really, but more in a hologram kind of space. And it's like either like if you turned your head different ways, it would turn along with it. So they build those things specifically so that you can really get away from any of the orders and stuff that they wanted you to follow through with. And it's one thing that I did leave out as far as, you know, they create kind of like it's like an alternate universe. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but it's just, you know, the reality is there are portals in the spirit realm, and they want you to go through that and go into that alternate space where they can do a lot of communication there. Because, you know, with the information they have about frequencies and things like that, radio waves, TV waves, all the different waves that are going on, but they have their own specific frequency that they go on to communicate. And so it's kind of like an alternate universe. The only way I really know how to explain it, sometimes I do not like any kind of sci-fi stuff because it's too real for me. Because a lot of it is real, you know. It's just my husband likes sci-fi, so I know we watched an Interstellar one time, and the difference where he was in an alternate universe and kind of came back to the present. That's not the only way I really know how to explain it. It's kind of astral projecting out and going and getting the information that they want you to get. For me, it was what's going on in the spirit realm, like what are the angels doing, like what are the churches doing and their prayers and stuff like that. They could tell that I was kind of more open to that because I don't know, I just feel like that the Lord would somehow he showed me this and like saving my spirit, like he gave me different things throughout that kind of helped me to see, even though it was years and years and years later for me to even be able to make a choice on who, you know, to accept him, but like that he's out there. And so I think they use that against me to go to do the astral projection and go out and get the information and bring it back to them. So it's kind of like a different portal, and they do that a lot with the NASA experience, the NASA experiments and things that they're doing. The Clintons are very involved with that, specifically Hillary Clinton. She's pretty much over that. she's got they've got different phases, and that they're going to now because that didn't work. But yeah, yeah, that she's over a lot of that.
Now, with the NASA programming and certain public figures, what's the connection between like the programming you received at NASA and what happens with certain public figures? Was this like an operation to create uh, the execution of certain missions in people if certain things were to happen with certain public figures?
Yes, absolutely. So recently, and we talked about a little bit about this. I have a lot of um, the Swan Soldier programming. It's a specific type of MK Ultra, but not just me, but a lot of other ones do. But it contained a lot of this stuff with like Gloria Vanderbilt. Her symbol was the swan, and she's of course a Vanderbilt. And I have tons of memories from the Biltmore Mansion and all of that. But they were very involved as far as in the Illuminati. And so the media plays a huge role. I mean, Anderson Cooper, he is connected because he's trained to go out there and put this information out there. But the media is very involved, and they have specific those that are tortured victims, and those that are just that's their job to go out and put specific information, so it triggers all of the soldiers so that we'll know exactly what's the next mission and all the different things that may just be one word. For me, it's a different thing. Like there was at one point there was a flyby by the Statue of Liberty, and so that I knew what phase we were in. Like it's just different things that you've already been programmed, and they give you the orders through the holograms. But like recently with Gloria Vanderbilt dying, and then there was some deaths of media figures. It was just a very clear signal to us. And that, of course, now I'm not going to follow through with that, but I know of that because I was programmed about that. But that the next phase is taking place, and it's a marker. And even like the lady that showed up at the wall in all white and was talking about all the children and how they were in pens and in cages. It's just another thing for us to say, hey, if you don't do what we told you to do, we're going to put you back in cages. We're going to put you back where you originally were at. And that's why part of the reason why they do all the foundational stuff is because they don't want you to be so terrorized to ever have to go back there. You'll do whatever they tell you to do. So, there's those markers of what phase you're actually in, and their plan of really taking over and doing what they want to do in this country.
I'm glad you're just taking the time to break all of this down and explain it, because truly, this is a reality that, people on the outside have a hard time accepting that there's a whole population of individuals in the United States that aren't just being manipulated by mass media mind control, but are programmed to interpret certain things that happen in the media in such a way as to shift into a different mode of engagement out of their programming. And so their response to political figures, their response to political positions, that even voting patterns are being manipulated by their mind control. And there is a director that or direction that's being established from those that stand behind the news media, and even different mainstream movies that come out. You know, they're trying to produce a response in a programmed population. And for those of us that are on the outside, we can't understand that. We just think, you know, especially for those of us that are waking up, you know, people are being unreasonable. It's like, why do you get so locked in your cyclical thinking? But for some people, it's not even a choice. It's what was perpetrated on them.
Absolutely. Well, and you know, for us, that's something that was programmed from birth or in the womb, really. And you know, they do that with just mainstream people. I mean, like the way they'll say the words, it's very trance inducing, or the words that they speak, and they say it over and over and over. So there's different ways that they try to also control people or try to desensitize them to, and one of those ways is through movies. If you see recently, there's so many movies that are about NASA and about the Space Center.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot. True. And I believe, honestly, this is my prayer at least, is that as they're in this draining the swamp, or, you know, that's the catchphrase, but as they're exposing the Illuminati, really, is what it is, that they're coming across some really, really evil stuff. And I think they're aware of a lot more. And so I think that the Illuminati is really doing everything they can to try to, the whole population as a whole, to where they get their minds so programmed to think that, oh, this is like just make-believe. This is not something that really goes on. This is in the comic books, or this is Spider-Man, or this is, you know, all the different, like there's Lucy in the Stars that's come out recently, where she's like supposedly losing her mind, and then Get Out. There's lots of astronaut, like, hypnosis kind of program in that movie. I didn't watch these movies. I just seen the trailer, and it like totally brought up tons of memories for me. So, I mean, they're just, and I don't sit around and just think, oh, that's it, or that's it. It's just automatic memories. When I see this, it's automatic memories that surface. And, you know, it's really sad that so many people think it's just, oh, that could never happen, or that is real. Well, where are they making these things up from? You know what I mean? Where do they get this outrageous stuff from? It's because it's real and it happens, you know. They might take it to an extreme in some of the Marvel comics and stuff like that, just to try to make it look like if people were to come out and tell the truth, like I'm doing, that we're just nuts. But unfortunately, it is going on, and it's has been for a really long time.
Well, I'm beginning to just absolutely switch so far to the other side of this conversation, folks, where it's just like, you know, for me, I listen to people tell their memories, and I'm like, oh, you actually have a basis in reality. Now, all these people that literally cannot accept or acknowledge what's staring us all in the face, you're the one that should probably get off of your meds and get into the real world. Well, you know, anyway, I really don't feel like I'm the crazy person in the room, Hope. Most of the time, I just do not. I feel like I'm very lucid and very sane. Like,
well, it's probably, I mean, like the more healing that I get, the more I feel like, hey, I am like, I mean, you don't have all this stuff, but like just that freedom of like, hey, I know what's going on here. Like, I'm not being tricked and just deceived. Like, I truly know why these things are happening. Like, so.
It's just so ridiculous. Like, you know, and I mean, we can just go through the list, right? They use holograms to harass people. Oh, sounds like we should medicate you. No, sounds like we should medicate you. person, you just don't know what you actually are totally outside of the realm of reality. Oh, they use satellites to target people. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, really? You think that they don't have satellites in the air? You think they don't know how to use those frequencies, tap into your brainwave signature, which they have documentation all over. You can look up patents, US patents for all this stuff, but I'm the one that's crazy. You're the one that's crazy. You.
No, I get it.
Right? But it's nice that we kind of can move this conversation along, and it's time that the rest of the world woke up to what we're already saying. I so appreciate you, Hope. Now I want to say this. You coming back to something that you said, which was very significant. You said that the Clintons are very involved, from your perspective, in the whole NASA programming piece, right? How would it have affected your healing journey? And this is kind of this is an opinion question. So, but how do you think it would have affected your healing journey had she been elected?
Oh, wow. I mean, you saw me. I was a basket case, really, when all that was going on, like the whole election and all that. I was terrified because I had been so programmed that when she got elected, that I would have to carry out some pretty horrible. I mean, now I didn't willfully do these things, but all these memories were coming back, and this terror of what I was going to have to do if she got elected, because all of those that have been trained as soldiers in, really robots in their army or whatever, that we were going to have to carry out some pretty horrible things, and not because we wanted to, but because people would get killed or we would be tortured, or, so yeah, I was terrified. I really, really was. Even though logically I knew, hey, I'm free now, it's still all of that fear that they had programmed into me, of what was going to happen next. Because all of this is programmed into you when you're little. Their plans have not been, oh, well, maybe next year we'll do that. This plan has been like decades after decades after decades. I mean, they've been working on this, and that's why they've been able to get as far as they can. And that's why I say, to think that they don't have cross genetics, like human and animal cross breeding and genetics and cloning and all of that, is really being in huge denial, because they've been working on this for a long, long time, to deceive and manipulate. And specifically, I know from the program that I went through, they're targeting the normal population with all of the frequencies from the cell towers, all of the sugar that in the genetically modified foods, and the program on the TV, all of these things to really get us to where we can't use the entire brain that the Lord created for us, to where we're numbed down, to where we only use just a fraction of what the Lord has given us. I mean, why do you think that is? It's because they want to be the people that use their entire brain and can take what God created for good and use it for complete and total evil. They're using their entire brain because they've not been numbed down. They know how to do that, and they numb down people so that we aren't the ones that are creating good things for us. We're not creating things that will prosper us. It's all these things that are, for them to be in control, so that's really where all of that is coming from.
So, continuing a little deeper, NASA programming involved not just the machines where they'd spin you and the isolation and all this. They also did a lot with computers and attaching you to computers and other people, to my understanding. you talk about some of that programming?
Sure, sure. Um, so pretty much my whole life I've been like terrorized of computer. I've just been a really, really extreme fear of computers, and I had a lot of programming about computers because they try to, um, as you know, I'm sure you've talked a lot about it on here, but like they try to kind of construct a program computer inside of you to where they can do whatever they do and you respond the way a computer would. Um, Specifically, one thing of how they do that, I mean, you have the ones that are kind of the governmental leaders that are up in front and have a huge computer screen. Um, I'd say it looks more like a military kind of screen, computer screen, which is much more advanced than the normal computer screen like we would see. And then they also have smaller computers, and all of the victims are hooked up to the computers, and then they're connected to their specific programmers. Normally, they're always doing some form of electrical shock through those computers to get you to look a certain way or act a certain way or do a certain hand signal. It's just a lot of electric shock, which is very, very painful and intense and just really hideous. But and then they add in the manipulation. They'll connect the programs. So programmers will connect themselves to the computer and begin to act like they're being tortured, like they're going through the same thing that I was going through. They're being shocked. And so at that point, there's always somebody saying, with them and other people saying, in more of a group kind of setting, saying, you know, you caused this, you're the reason they are being tortured. How can you be the victim if they're being tortured? You know, because that means you're the evil person. You're actually torturing them, and you're the programmer. And so it's just a horribly crazy feeling, because you know, I'm not wanting to do that. Like that's not what I want to do. Like, so obviously I'm doing something I don't even know that I'm doing, you know? And so it's just, it's horrifying. And then as they go into it, then they'll just begin to laugh and say, and so then you don't know, are they really being tortured? Are they not being tortured? As I worked through those memories, the Lord has shown me they weren't being tortured at all. They were just faking it the entire time because they started laughing. And it was just to get me to think that, another way to get me to think that I was evil and I was horrible, and to die. It was always well, you know, we deserve you doing this for, you know, like you should do this for us because look what you did to us. So they really always use that heart of compassion against me. They've always tried to use that against me and make me think I was crazy, because if you think you're crazy and evil and that you don't want to be crazy and evil, you'll do anything somebody tells you. I thought I had to endure these things like there wasn't any other way. And then you put on top of that, well, this is where God lives and God's the one that said for this to happen. Well, then this is like, in a way, it's like, this is my service. Like, this is what I have to do. And then they take it even another farther. They always pair you with somebody that they've allowed you to bond with just partially. For me, it was a younger brother, even though he probably wasn't. I don't think we were probably biologically connected at all. It was someone that was close with me in the house that they had put me in. And kind of, I was more of like a mother figure. I always had to take care of them. And I felt responsible for protecting him. And they do that on purpose, especially those that have that strong compassion, or that strong wanting to protect. They really find out what your weaknesses are, even though that's a plus now. But for there, it was a big weakness because they were able to use it against me. So they began to torture him and shock him. And it at that point, like, I could endure what I had to go through, but if you look at somebody that you care about and you're supposed to be protecting and they're going through that, it's like I will do anything that they tell me to do to keep him from having to go through that. Because, you know, he's screaming out, like, because they've told him I'm the reason. He's screaming out the whole time, like, you're doing this to me. Why are you doing this to me? And so that was probably the worst torture, you know, when they do that, because you have no connection. Like recently we've been working through how to even be connected in my own self, you know, but you have no connection. It's very, very lonely. But they allow you that connection. When they do that, it's very, very strong. And it's the last thing you ever want to see is somebody that you're supposed to be protecting get hurt. And so that was really, really hard. But they know the human brain, and they know the ways to control it. And so that's continual. So they're using the computer screens really to make a computer on the inside. So they push whatever button they want to push, and you do what they tell you to do, no matter what.
And I have encountered time after time these, you know, computers on the inside, or, you know, that the survivor is the computer, and then there's hookups to external computers. Folks, if you're going to get into this kind of work, helping survivors get breakthrough, you're going to have to get used to dealing with computers and synthetic technology. As a matter of fact, I have a prayer in my book, Prayers to Shake Heaven and Earth. It's called Freedom from Synthetic Genetics. And I will tell you, Hope and I worked on that together, in a sense, because we were trying to get her a breakthrough, and I had to figure that language into the renunciation and the prayer in order to get the breakthroughs. Yeah. And since then, we have expanded on that a whole lot in advanced Prayers that Shake Heaven and Earth, which, as of the recording of this, will be coming out in a couple months. We have a much more thorough prayer addressing the synthetic kingdoms and dealing with the technological component of the programming, and it's a real thing.
Absolutely. I mean, I say those prayers every day. Thank God for that book and for the new book that's coming out. I mean, not just for people who've been through what I've been through, but other people that aren't even aware of things that's going on around them, you know.
Now, recently, Hope, and we were working on some things, and NASA came up, and so did Merfolk, which, for those of you that don't know, is basically an all-inclusive term for mermaids and mermen. And I was absolutely shocked that this began to come up. I would have never in my mind made a connection between NASA and the underwater spirit kingdom, but here we were. And so, Hope, I want to let you unpack this.
Sure.
As these were your memories, and you wanted to talk about these things. And so, folks, just get ready.
Yeah, it's difficult to believe that the extent of the things that they do, but So I've had a lot of memories with one specific female actor that's pretty well known. Um, and there, there was a lot of shape shifting. This was actually in NASA. They do a lot of experiments, underwater type of experiments. I think because there's so many portals and so many demons that they can um, channel through water. And then they have, as far as frequencies and all of that, all the different realms with that. But so they did a lot of underwater experiments, a lot to genetically crossbreed, especially with amphibians. And some of this is just a cause, well, through this, they cause a lot of terror because you see a lot of the genetic crossbreeding that they do as they're trying to come up with this like superhuman type of being that and it's all in a quest to really have the upper hand in this world. They want to have they think they have the bloodline, so they want this superhuman ability, and so they see a lot of it through genetically crossbreeding with different types of species, like specifically amphibians. Um, uh, when I would see things that were genetically crossbred, when I would see those things, I would like literally think I was losing my mind. Like, is this real? But I saw it, but they did a lot to try to make me think that I was crazy, like that I was hallucinating, or that I was like, they did a lot of program with me on the having some mental illness. But I know what I saw, and I know that they were doing that, and that's how that they were. Some of it was shape shifting with the Mer spirit, because I literally saw people with like fins. Some of it was shape shifting. I think some of it was the genetic crossbreeding and trying to come up with that. Like, so a lot of that was going on because they really have a hatred towards God. And so anything that's in its pure form of what he created, they hate. And so they were wanting to be God and like come up with their own superhuman species. And, Satan gives them evil insight to all those things, and they're open to anything.
So
So
when you were in the underground NASA facilities, you're saying that there were either rooms or tubes or actual physical storage structures where the hybrids were being kept, and you saw them.
mm-hmm. Yeah, they were like tanks,
Okay.
water like tanks, but not huge, but like I could see through it with the water and everything. And for me, and every time that they did anything like that, they would normally put something on me to where I would think that I had turned into something that they like that. Like whether it was them shape shifting with werewolves or, with wolves, they would put something on me to make me think that I had turned into something like that. With this, they did the same thing, like a fin on your legs. But I did see that, and it was very demonic looking, like very evil in the facial figures. And so, yeah, unfortunately, that is definitely going on, and it's not just. I mean, recently there was an exposure in just if you look up humanized mice, you just Google it, you're going to see it out in the open that they've been doing this for a really long time. I mean, and they are very open about it. You look on the on the internet, they talk about it in the open. And so, anyways, Trump found out about it and he shut it down. But they were using aborted fetuses, and so to cause these humanized mice. And so I think little leaks like that are happening. I don't think because they want us to get kind of used to those kind of things, but it's not the only thing that's going on. They're very, very evil people, and they've been using that crossbreeding for for a really long time. So it's happening, and there's, it's out in the open now, and it's just a lot deeper than what people realize. It's they've been using federal money to do that. So,
man, yeah, so there you are, 4 or 5 and other ages, seeing these hybrids in these underground facilities. There's a movie that came out. I didn't see it. It was called The Shape of Water.
mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw it but if you're aware of it.
I didn't see it. I saw just like a trailer of it, and that's it. I mean, that's
it. It's basically just putting it out there, like, oh, and by the way, this hybrid we're making.
Yeah. I mean, that's the type of thing it is. It really is, and it's the reason they do those movies is because they don't want people because things are being exposed, and they don't want people to know what they're doing because they have the upper hand.
And you know what else that they are putting out there? I was just shocked, Hope. I mean, I was actually giggling because it was just so funny to me to think that, like, this stuff is going over people's head. I took my wife to see Godzilla because I'm like, we're going to see what they're doing now. They're going to, blow up a bunch of cities, whatever. I know exactly what they're going to do here. They're all the same. But in this most recent Godzilla movie, they have this massive reptile appearing and disappearing on different places on the map, like in the world. And so the scientist is sitting there talking about why. He's like, well, let me explain. He's going in and out of deep underwater portals using tunnels going through hollow earth. And I'm like, of course he is, because it's all real. And the only one that's confused is all these crazy people, right? Because we talked about it.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, that's like I said with Interstellar. It's that crossing into another realm, and just going in and out of that. We're spirit being, like, and there's not just a good spirit being. There's not just good. There's evil. So of course they do that. I mean, they twist everything that's good and use it for bad.
Now, I don't know that this is related at all, but I am going to ask you about this because we're on the subject of NASA. And there's a lot of debate. Did NASA actually go to the moon? And most of that has to do with the actual tape that the American public was shown and all of the weirdness. And I'm not sure if you've seen like some of the breakdowns of the video and why stuff doesn't make sense.
Right.
I don't know if you have an opinion on that, but since we're on the subject, I'm simply going to float the question.
Mm-hmm. I have a lot of programming about the whole moon thing because really, um, that they use a lot of program and use a lot of denial with that, along with like I told you, putting us in kind of a secluded thing to make us feel like we were in space. And they would always say, "You're going to the moon, and we're never going to be able to find you," which created a lot of terror because you think you're out somewhere and nobody knows where you're at, and God definitely doesn't care. Um, so I think there's much more probably memory wise that I haven't gotten to, that really crazy kind of feeling. And when I start feeling that, there's more memories that are probably going to surface. I know that they used that piece of that book, that children's book, I Love You to the Moon and Back. There's one that's from like 1990 something, but it was always used as a denial method of the whole moon thing, like the Twilight Zone, where they did the whole story with the Twilight Zone of whether they, to cause confusion and feeling crazy about if they went to the moon or not. And then just so they made a lot of confusion. They created on purpose a lot of confusion about this stuff with them going to the moon and back. And I know Tesla, he's very involved with all the space. He has this new thing, SpaceX, and $33 billion, sending people to Mars supposedly. And he's very involved. So there's a lot more deep things going on there. So I'm kind of torn with all of that. I know that there's some good people in NASA, but then I know there's a lot of evil too. So I'm not real sure what truly went on with all of that.
Wow. Yeah, I on this subject, I was always very convinced. Like anybody that thought that we didn't go to the moon, like that was just absolute pure conspiracy nonsense. So I started watching some breakdowns of the video. I then later concluded, no, they know exactly how to get to the moon. I've actually talked to so many people that have memories from the moon. Involved in projects. They're not using rockets to get there. They're just using the anti-gravity craft. And there are bases there and all kinds of other stuff, lots of stuff on the dark side of the moon. But I think now what probably happened with the video was they created that for the purpose of creating confusion. Meanwhile, all the stuff with the moon is going on and it's hidden from public sight to tell people what's going on up there.
I know that they do that specifically in a program to cause a lot of confusion about if people have gone to the moon or if they go to the moon, just a lot of confusion about that. So obviously there's a lot of stuff that they're trying to hide with that. Normally when they try to cause confusion, there's something bigger that they don't want people to find out about or to expose.
Man. Well, Hope, is there anything that we didn't ask about specifically that you want to add to your expose on this subject?
I think we really covered a lot of it. I think that there's probably still a lot that the Lord is wanting to bring out in me that He's healing. I think I'm still in the process of healing some of the things because it was such a huge part of the programming that I went through. I've gone to so many memories. The Lord has brought back so much, but a lot of the things that people just would reject and don't believe, and that feeling of I'm crazy. They use it a lot. And so I think there's a lot still he wants. Well, I guess we're all on a healing journey. But I just encourage people to really be aware and ask the Lord what he wants to show them about like the agenda that they have right now and why they're so focused on NASA, because I think there's something that they're wanting to cover up into, obviously, but I think that there's something more that they're wanting to keep from the public from knowing. So the more that we're aware and we're seeking the Lord on it, the better. Specifically, you know, with the 5G, 6G, and all these things that are coming out, I think a lot of it is to try to contain people in their thinking, really. And so I think a lot of that is based in NASA and the experiments that they're doing.
Wow. Well, at the end of the day, praise God for Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hope, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for breaking all of this down. Thank you for being courageous enough to continue on your healing journey and to continue to put this stuff out there. You know, it takes a lot of guts. And I say that every time I bring a survivor on the program. It takes a lot of guts to do this. And folks, you know, you listen to these programs, you listen to my guests, you don't know what it costs them personally to get up here and to talk, both before the recording and after the recording. You know, there's resistance on both sides, blowback. I mean, the emotional roller coaster that can surround doing this, it can be pretty intense. And so, you know, I just bless you, Hope, and thank you so much for your courage.
Thank you. You know, I before I started this today, it was like the Lord was really showing me, you know, Papa God was showing me that to try to see people, and people that have been through what I've been through, like you can look at somebody and not really see the wounds, like, but underneath all that, there's tons of wounding and hurt and everything, and to try to really look past the outside and like really look at what God, you know, what Papa God sees, and to try to have compassion for each other, because we're all in a journey, and for some people it's a lot harder than what you think. So
So true. Well, folks, that's it for this week. So until next time, God bless and Godspeed. You've been listening to Discovering Truth with Dan Duvall. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, like our video, and share this with friends. This podcast is a production of Bride Ministries International. Visit our website at brideministriesinternational.com to enjoy the Bride Ministries Church, the Bride Ministries Institute, free resources, and to support us financially.